Hello, I'm Paul Briley, and you're listening to Off the Comma. I'm a human who cares about supporting other humans. On this podcast, we explore all facets of what it means to feel stuck in life. We talk with people just like us who found themselves sitting on a comma and not knowing where to go next. We'll unpack the experience with them, where they've been stuck, what it feels like, what they experienced, and what they learned. My goal is to inspire you by seeing yourself in others. I believe that when we feel more connected and seen, magic can happen. And remember, if you find yourself sitting on a comma in your life, you can also talk to me without a microphone. To explore coaching with me and getting off the comma in your own life, check out my information and book a call with me at offthecomma.com. And I'm also doing something different. I'm curating my own sponsor community, local businesses and professionals who I handpick and who align with our vision here. Be sure to check them out, learn more about them on my website and my YouTube channel. In the meantime, let's get into this week's conversation. Awesome. Okay, cool. We are back again for another episode of Off the Comma. We are in the 50s now of the episodes. And I'm super excited about this episode in particular because I met someone recently. So this is another person who's new to my circle. And she and I just really hit it off. And she has got all the energy. And we've had a couple of conversations. And then, of course, I invited her onto the podcast. And so you're going to get to learn all about her very, very shortly. But very excited to have Angela Harvey with me this week. And I'm excited to hear about her story and continue to learn more about her and give her an opportunity to share her story with all of you as well. So I'm going to stop rambling. Angela, I'm going to hand it over to you. And before we get into your story, tell us a little bit about yourself. How would you like to be known?
I would like to be known as an unapologetic truth teller, my sister, brother, and community's keeper. Know me as a guide, as a light, a creative, my own hype man, for sure and for certain. I'm an intentional storyteller. By way of my degree, I'm a social worker, a growthologist. I teach grown folks how to grow up. I'm an award-winning filmmaker and also here recently an author and a poet. And I am also humbled. I absolutely want to definitely leave that legacy. I'm all those things in a very humble way. And also a grateful, recovering codependent. I cannot forget that piece right there.
Mm-hmm. So much. I mean, and this is so in line with what I've learned about you just in the very short time that we've known each other. And it's just so many things involved there, or so many things there that are a part of you and what you do and who you are and what you bring. And so I'm very confident we're going to see that manifest and show up in your story today. So very excited. And folks, by the end of our call or our conversation here, are going to be able to check out some of the things that you're involved with as well. But
yay.
Nice. So
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. And before we actually get into the questions, now you and I haven't talked about what you're going to be sharing with us today. I always like to keep that as fresh and new for me as it is for the listeners. But before we get started into the questions, I always like to ask my guests this question, which is, as you think about the conversation ahead, the next 45 minutes or so, what intention would you have for yourself?
It is my intention to be an example. It is my intention to turn my comma into a semicolon. It is my intention to be intentionally transparent and also to have to share my story so that my story could possibly save souls.
I hear that. And my intention is to support you in that by creating a container for you to be able to share your story. And that in sharing your story, there will be people out there who will hear your story and see a little bit of themselves in you and your story and feel more connected, a little less alone. And in the best of cases, feel a little bit inspired or empowered to take action on something that they've been wanting to do. So great. Let's put our intentions together.
Yes.
Awesome. Angela, so let's get started with the first question. Where in your life have you found yourself sitting on a comma?
I am going to go current, because that's going to give us the best work. That's going to give me some work and be able to share with other people as well. And I think what I'm going to go with is the comma that I'm currently sitting on is my self-isolation, what I call I'm I've placed myself into protective custody.
Mm.
And it wasn't until you and I started talking that it kind of came up and just kept whirling around. But that would be where I currently am. So I'm sitting right on the edge of that comma right now.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's, first of all, it's a great metaphor. I love that. And it sounds like there's a whole lot in there too. And I love how you said sitting on the edge of that comma. So tell us more. What does putting myself into protective custody mean for you? And what is life like on this comma, or on the edge of this comma, as you said?
Right. So when I say protective custody, what I'm referring to is that I have, especially in these last 4-5 years for sure, for certain, found myself in places where I've been taken advantage of, where I've not been able to protect myself, where I've been abused in some ways.
Mm.
Found myself untrusting of other people, found myself, especially as I began recovering from my codependency and setting boundaries, knowing how the people that were in my world, a lot of people, a lot of things were used to me being without boundaries. And so
Mm.
I've had this, and I'm very, very, very emotional and intentionally feeling all of the emotions. And it just became a lot. It became so much as I began to allow myself to feel on purpose. It became so much that I found myself then protecting myself from hearing people say things that they really don't mean. Like, I'll be there to help, and then they not show up, or saying things that they really do mean that are harmful to me and my spirit. And I found myself then being smart. You use the word container, finding myself just in this space where I am protecting myself from anything and anybody that could cause me any adversity.
Mm.
And initially it was unintentional. It was just like, okay, then. But in 2021, I promised myself I would never let me down. And what that has looked like is me really and truly being able to walk away from some things, but also now stay away out of probably fear of me not being able to manage the emotions that can be triggered by the presence of other people and certain situations. And it's protective custody. I didn't do it on purpose, but it's like, okay, then stay here, and nobody could bother you if you stay here. But if you go here, 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 yeah, you're liable to get knocked out.
Mm.
And trying just really and truly to stay on my feet, to stay grounded, to stay on purpose, to stay intentional. And it has meant me being then in protective custody, for sure.
Mm. Mm. Well, I mean, and you said for the last 4 to 5 years. So it sounds like, and correct me where I misstate anything, you put yourself in protective custody, and then you also kind of rode out COVID in that place as well. And I mean, it sounds like initially it was challenging, but it shifted for you as you've been there.
Absolutely. And it did start right before COVID. And I moved to a totally different city where I didn't have any anchors. I had no responsibility. I didn't have to be anybody's anything. I just had to be Angela. And then COVID happened. And so I had to intentionally shut down with all of these big emotions that I
Mhm.
had, having a shelter in place alone without without the presence of a person or another person, but also just not the presence of many of the people that I thought I was connected with. And then it kind of journeyed from there, where I like, okay, then how do I protect myself? Okay, the best way to protect yourself is to not go around it. The best way to protect yourself is to not talk to it. The best way to protect yourself is to not, so I found myself, like I said, getting smaller, 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 where it was just me. And it didn't help that the more disconnected I got from those people that could potentially do me harm, the more creative and the more productive I was. So it didn't help that I was able to do all these amazing things while not doing anybody else. And as a recovering codependent, and me being without anybody to be codependent on or codependent with, I found myself very, very productive. So then, for a long while, there was no reason to come out of it. So, you do a movie, and then you do a coloring book, and then you do this, and then you write a book. And so now when I tell you on the edge of this comma, of course, commas are round. So the edge, so you either go down slowly or you just fall down. And I feel like, okay, I love the comment. I love all of this. If I don't really, what would be the word? If I don't scale down in the right way, if I'm not intentional about how I get down, it will be a fall. So, bringing this up now, and I didn't know where I was going to go with it, but bringing this up now is what's going to be so very important, because I need to really and truly be able to scale down like you would a mountain. I would prefer not to fall, but I do know that I need to get off the comma. For sure. I have to practice these skills I say that I've learned, but you really can't know that you're strong until you start to lift things. And so I need to start lifting.
Yeah. Well, and I so appreciate how you kind of go into the metaphor a little bit more, because that's what I love about the metaphor is everybody gets to interpret it their own way. And I've heard so many different descriptions of what sitting on a comma means. And you were saying, well, if you're not careful, you can fall off. And I was like, I myself, and I have seen others like turn the body around and hug, and like where gravity should be pulling you down, like you're still kind of clinging to it from the side. But so there's so much I'm curious about in your story, because I hear a lot of difficult things in this comma, this period of your life. And I also hear some things that have sort of come out of it, and some ways that you evolved during this period, which really fascinates me. If we may, let's start with what was it? Could you say a little bit more about what sent you into that period of protective custody, self-isolation? You've talked about codependency. You've talked about people, who were taking advantage of you, abusing you, and so forth. What finally told you, like, I must retreat?
I'm not sure that I got to a place where I said I must retreat. It's like if you don't, you're getting ready to go down for sure and for certain. It started with a breakup. That's how the comma began to form. And then me really and truly, for the first time in my life, needing people, and not knowing how to ask, then finally asking and finding out that people didn't and couldn't show up. And then I said, okay, then wait a minute. So where am I supposed to go with this? Because I've been literally, I've been feeding a community, and I'm feeling starved. I've been feeding a family, and I feel like I'm dying of hunger. And that's when I realized that, wait a minute, Angie, those people are not you. So you did this thing, and you could show up, and I could show up for 16 people and still do everything in a particular way. Well, that's just the charm of a codependent. We can show up and show out for any and everybody, especially when we're needed. And it wasn't until then I discovered that literally me showing up for other people is what gave me my superpower, but it was never me showing up for me. It was me discovering that I had not ever entered a relationship seeking to be loved, but always to give love. That was my primary purpose. And me really and truly having to formulate at 54 my own definition of love, because I had never ever defined that for myself, just in what I could give and not what I wanted. And all I could do, I don't even know that I did it, but between the people that I found that I felt strongly enough, when I reached out and you didn't reach back, I had to let you go, because it literally was like, I got to find somebody to help save me. And I literally was going down a row of people, and literally nobody would hold on. And I was like, in the end of that, like, Angie, all you have is yourself, inward and upward. Me and my God is all I had. And I had to hold on to that tight because even I was faltering with myself. So God's hand was out, but I was like, at any given time, I want to let go, just let me go, just let me go. And that's how I found myself on that comma where I have to do what I need to do to protect myself. And I didn't know who I could trust. I now know that when people weren't used to apologizing to me, so they didn't. And so when I started asking for an apology or for people to take responsibility, they would just assume go away, and they did. And so then it was just about protecting yourself. What can you do? So I could, if I never have any expectations, I never have any failures. If I don't ever have any conversation, I don't have to. If I don't, so people would say something as simple as, "I'll call you later." They don't know I'm sitting by the phone waiting on that phone call like a little kid waits on his father to pick him up for the weekend. They don't know that, but they could just not call. And in order for me to take myself out of that was just to literally go from grand expectations, because again, this is the first time in my world. I lost my sister. I lost a relationship, moved to a different city, the pandemic. I'm sheltering in place alone. I need help. And for people not to be able to show up with like, okay, Angie, all you got is you. So I ended up in this place, just really and truly protective custody, sheltering myself so that I could still be sane.
Yeah. And that is such, I'm going to self-reference for a moment to say that I myself have had an experience with this. And I don't say that to take away from you. It's to preface what I'm about to say. There are going to be people out there who hear your story and they know exactly what you're talking about and exactly what that's like. And I believe that there's a lot of people who really can't relate. Like they think they can connect with that, but they can't really understand. You tell me if this is an incorrect word, but this feeling of desperation that sinks in when you are grasping for people and not getting a response. And then the types of things that go through your mind that feed the identity machine. And then this sense, I don't know if this is true for you or not, but this sense of the very thing that I most desperately want is the thing that I can't have because now I've become desperate for it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's bigger than that is discovering that I taught people how to treat me, and I was a horrible teacher. I taught people you didn't have to apologize. You didn't have to say please. You didn't have to say thank you. You don't even have to don't consider me at all. Call me in the middle of the night, ask for all of my whole paycheck, whatever it is, and I will do it, and I will do it with a smile on my face. And I taught people that. And so that was a bigger revelation, not just I'm in this desperate place, but are you kidding me that I've been given and given and given and given and given and didn't stock up any of that for me with people who, and no judgment at all. I do realize that I live in an ocean where people who cannot swim and who are fearful and who are not deep on that level cannot come save me. So, I would have come up against this one way or the other. It just so happened I came a time where I was desperate. And so desperate that, suicide was absolutely an option for me. It's something that I still actively think about. Now I don't think about taking my own life. Now I just think about, if God truly loved me, he'll just come pick a sister up. Like, help me out here. You see, I don't want any more disappointment in my life, and I would rather leave here than to be disappointed by anybody else. It's something to have to grieve people that are still living, but that you can't touch and feel that and seemingly they don't even reach out, care, or even think about you. I would rather leave here than to feel those things on a daily basis. I'm constantly thinking about somebody. So with a lot of people that I care about, because I didn't believe in everything. I wanted everything in my world to be a lifetime. I didn't ever think that I was going to love people, and it would just be for a reason or a season. It didn't make sense to me that I could feel what I feel for somebody and still have to have them be here in this world, but I not be able to connect with them. And that's a daily pain. That's a daily pain, because when it comes down to it, the thing that I will hear next about them will be that they're not here.
Mm.
And it could be traumatizing if I allowed it to be, but right now it's a very uncomfortable place to sit. But I know that I have to save me, and that was the purpose of the comma, because I believe all commas have a purpose. And so I believe I've sat here long enough for me to get an understanding of the why. I've been blessed with the reasons, the why, and now it's absolutely time for me to move. It's time for me to scale that comma and get down from here.
I'm gonna ask another question in a moment, but first I just want to acknowledge you, first of all, for sharing this with us, and for letting those feelings come through. And it strikes me as your capacity for depth of feeling is tremendous. And what you show us and show people who maybe aren't as familiar with this is that there is a tremendous upside to having that depth of capacity for feeling and empathy and love. And there's also a downside or overused or whatever words we want to call it, which is that it can create these things that you've described and shared with us, right? Like the very person in your life who you feel is always so loving and so caring and so empathetic is also capable of feeling just deep, deep sadness and disconnection. So the very thing that they're able to connect to can feel so much more significant when you're not able to connect to.
Yes. Yeah. You summed that up right. That's absolutely truth. I can reach the sky, but I also can, if hell could be touched and it is below, I've absolutely grown to that place as well. And I'm conscious now that I won't ever, I used to say, I wished I could not feel like seemingly other people not feel. I know what gets them there. I'm a therapist, so I know what gets them to that place. I used to say, well, I wish I could do that and not feel anything, but I'm so clear that the joy of the highs that I feel it's remarkable. And I would not trade it and won't ever trade it just to get out of this, because I do know that this is temporary, and I do know that I'm responsible for a lot of the horror stories I experience. I tell myself, Stephen King don't have anything on me. I could write a horror story that will make me get under the bed with the monster. And I've had to stop telling myself those things, So yeah, you're right.
I'd love to add to what you said, because this really just came up for me as you were saying it. You said, I can reach the sky and I can also touch the depths of hell. And here's another thing that I think a lot of people don't really understand is you can reach the sky, and yet you can also suffer so significantly when you can't reach the sky, right? So it's not always even just this kind of binary sky versus hell, as much as it is like, and if you can't reach the sky that day, that month, that season, then that in and of itself is hell, right? You don't even have to go to hell to experience it.
Yeah. And they could both coexist. So like as I am getting accolades for this award-winning documentary, I'm also contemplating suicide. As I could finish the tail end of a book, I could also say, I'm also saying you have nobody to celebrate this with you, nobody to high five, nobody, those things. And so they can coexist. And who knew that? Codependency kept me out of hell for a long time, because as long as I can please people, I'm good. And I did that for decades. The minute it was just about me, it's when it was like, wait a minute. I used to say some years back, like, man, it would be nice to be codependent again. That's when things were lovely. Everything was, woo, because you always had somebody who could use you.
Yeah.
There was always somebody that could use your help.
It seems in what you're sharing, there's this theme of, and you tell me what they mean, but this is what seems like it's coming up, is these themes of kind of alone, loneliness, connection, self, like, and its extremes within the bands of these words or labels. Like, say more about that, whatever comes up for you.
Well, I think what the biggest challenge for me was that I was the person I am in my community. I'm known by a lot of people. I had lots of what I thought were friends. Mm-hmm. And so to go from having this, oh my goodness, I know 1,000 people. I mean, I literally had to take down 5,000 people from my Facebook. But, to have that perception, to go to a place where you're alone and literally for the first time in your life being introduced to lonely, because I didn't know who lonely was. I didn't understand people who could be lonely. I just didn't understand that. So it was a big challenge for me. And then put on top of that, the codependency. So I'm, the first time I'm single in my adult life, and then I'm managing this growth along deep in this growth. Every day I'm swimming in it, growing and learning and those types of things. And then really and truly not to be able to be in a space where there's people. Has been probably a little bit more difficult than those people who have maybe just been loners the entire time. Mm-hmm. I always spent a lot of time alone, but I had options. That would be it. I had options. You and I were talking the other day, and I was like, man, I would love to do that if I had the option to have people that would offer or people that would invite options. And I find myself not having those options. I tell people it's like solitary confinement, except the door opens, but you have no place to go. So leave that, I have to tell myself every day, Angie, leave the house, go outside. And again, you protect yourself by staying indoors.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, right? Because there are those who would say with the best of intentions, it's like, just get out there, go meet people and so forth. And it's not to say that is ill advised or ill given advice. It's just for certain people, and you correct me, but there's this element of I have access to as many people as I want, and yet I have to be so mindful and careful and conscious of who I connect with, how I connect with them, and in what capacity and for what motivations. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. And what's so unique about all that is I tell people, once you're woke, you can't press snooze. Mm-hmm. So once you know what is, because before I lived in a la-la land, I remember my mother used to say, Angie, she called me Alice, because everything could be in my world. And that's the way I live life. And I can make it in your world too. And then you come down to a place where you're able to see that I'm woke enough where I can see people from across the street. I can see certain things. So things that I picked up along the way in these 53 years before, I won't pick up now because I know what it comes with. I know a lot of the partners I was with should have been clients. Just all of those types of things. Well, now you see, and when you are woke, so that's the challenge of just being able to go out and just make friends at 58 years old. It doesn't happen like that because I can see things I didn't see before. And when you can see people, and I'm just not talking about a third eye. I'm not talking about just discernment. I'm not talking about empath. I'm talking about all of those things combined. When you can see it, you can't just go pick up anybody. Mm-hmm. And yes, I do struggle with the fact that I know I've resuscitated lives and resurrected spirits. How is it that nobody's coming for me? And God has been really clear with me because they were reasons and seasons. But honey, I keep wanting it from these people I've given it to and not wanting to go get it from other people. Like, why should they give it to me when this is where I poured into? And God has been really clear. Listen, baby, here's where you come to get your gas. You can go, you waste that gas and go to as many places you want to, but don't you dare attempt to fill up with any man or woman. You come back here. And have had to learn that in that way. My license plate on my car says weightless, WAITLESS. I wait less on man and depend more on God. I still struggle with that. Something happens and I want somebody to celebrate with me, or something, good goes. And I want to, yesterday was the first holiday I spent not wanting to not be here. It's the first holiday I was like, okay, this is just what it is. And I let it just be, where every other holiday I'm waiting for the phone to ring, or waiting for it not to ring so I can say, see.
Mm.
So yeah, it's something. It's something. It's karma.
and maybe a thing, right? Like we all have our gifts, we all have our things, and then there's that thing that comes with it, right? Like it may be with you for your entire life, and yet what I see you doing is learning to kind of acknowledge and accept, manage, absolutely, but also acknowledge and accept and kind of shift your relationship with these things.
Absolutely. And you have to do that every day. So I remember telling clients how you have to do the work every day. One of my most famous sayings, and the thing that I'm probably anybody that knows me could quote, is you don't go from work to home, you go from work to work. And if you're not working as hard at home as you do at work, it's not going to work. The work I have to do every day with being able to tone that down, like, okay, Angie, take your expectations down and you let it come up to 1, take it back down to 0. And in my head, there's healthy expectations that you have in relationships, but people that don't want to be held accountable don't want to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? People that don't want to hear it, I no longer want to speak it to. Where before I wanted to, I wanted to bring you to your attention so that you could accommodate me. I no longer do that. And that's challenging because that's me having to self-regulate every day, sometimes more times out of the day than not. And that self-regulation can be something. It can be something. It can be something.
Angela, the second question, you've already started to answer this question for us, but I'll ask it again and you can add to it, is as you look at this comma that you've been sitting on, what has it created for you? What else has it created for you that you haven't already shared?
And you said something out loud, is sitting on. I said, probably initially I was laying on the comma. Sitting like that's something that people that know what they're doing get to do. You get to sit on the comma. No, I was laying on the comma. All of it's created lessons. I believe that some of our greatest lessons are learned in the valley. And this comma, even though it's rounded, and I do feel like I'm at the top of the comma, I'm not right in that little crease of it. It has been something that I've had to look at every day and extract a lesson, because I do know that everything that I don't extract, I will have to visit the valley again to get that lesson. So I'm very clear about staying here in this place until I get all that I feel like that's needed for the mountaintop, which is where I'm headed. And it has absolutely taught me how to I wrote down a list of all the things that I could do myself. So how to be self-aware, and how to be self-fulfilling, and how to be self-congratulatory, and how to be self-yielding, and how to be all of these things yourself, but also to show people grace, because people in their lifetimes don't ever get to the place where I've been elevated in my mental and emotional capacity. So I learned not to be judgmental, learn not to be so hard on, learn that I know now that only a strong friend can save a strong friend. I'm looking at all the people who I know are not, and I'm like, why can't you come for me? Because Angie, they can't swim, and you're in the middle of the ocean. Nobody's coming for you in that way, not even with their floaties on, And so it's teaching me those types of things, and really and truly how to look at something from a different vantage point. And just because I'm clear now that just because somebody's able to take something from you doesn't mean that they have it to offer to give. And just because you give it to somebody doesn't mean that you have expectations that they give you the same thing in return. I thought I was aware enough to know those things, and I was not, mainly because I lived a lifetime really and truly not needing a whole lot from a whole lot of people. I've never had to borrow money from people. I've never had to stay at anybody's house, all those things. And when I finally, and all these things happened to me at one time, when you needed somebody, I was without an address, I needed all these things. And you can't get a yes from anywhere. I believe it's for a reason, because I believe that many of the things that I have to experience are for me in my professional and my passionate world to be able to pass on, because shared stories save souls. I believe I'm supposed to get this. I'm supposed to be on this comma for good reason. Again, the example, and me being unapologetically transparent with everything that happens for good reason, because people will just see and go. And what I love about it is that people go, okay, if Angela Harvey, this world-renowned speaker, I elevate people for a living, like, how did she not get it? And so I'm giving you a prime example how it could happen to anybody. And it doesn't make a difference how much money you make, how many degrees you have, what kind of relationship you're in. And none of that makes a difference. It only matters about how well you're able to know yourself. Self-awareness is going to be key. And you really and truly being able to self-motivate and self-control and self-regulate, all those things. I was able to come up with something from A to Z about what I could do for myself and learning how to do those things.
I so appreciate everything that you're sharing, but within it, this thing that kind of resonates with something for me is, like you said, people will kind of question or wonder why or how somebody who's been a world-renowned author could be, or whatever. And it's like, it strikes me as this relationship that we have in our country, perhaps the world, with celebrity, right? And how people get so caught up in the outcome and the product, and then they just attach that to the person, and then that's all they are, right? And yet I love how you're just being human, and who did happen to do some things that are pretty damned impressive, right? And beyond the norm. But the human you has been experiencing these things and struggling through certain things and experiencing joys and discoveries and revelations. But like, you're not the celebrity. You're a person who went through these things and then channeled that pain into a product, so to speak. Right.
Right.
So I so appreciate that reflection on it.
That's the header. The header on the back of my book says, "My pain repurposed." Because I can remember feeling like writing on anything, writing on a plane, writing on back of napkins, whatever. And my hurt came out in poetry. And I was like, God, if you get me through this, I'm going to save anybody that will listen to my story. I'm going to tell the story, and you let me out of this thing, and I will absolutely get to that place. And I think that's what's been so pivotal in my world. When somebody said, "Oh, you're a director," and I said, "No, I'm obedient." And when somebody asked me I said, you all are the reason I'm still here, because of my assignment. Because with the exception of my dog, in my head, like there's no other person dependent on Angela, but I have an assignment. And I'm not sure, the reason I'm transparent with everybody, I'm not sure who's been assigned to me. So I give me to everybody, every stranger, every encounter, every meeting. I can absolutely show up. But now I show up for other people because I've shown up for myself. I don't have next. I got first. You got next. And that took me having to get to this place that I would have never thought and I still struggle with this. Like, Angie, how is it? Because it makes you feel unworthy, and it makes you feel unlikable. And I used to be 360 pounds. I've lost weight. I cut my hair. I feel like I changed my style of dress. In my head, I got cuter. But in so many ways, I'm being treated, or what it feels like is that I'm still the fat kid that nobody wants on the kickball team. I understand why. It just still doesn't feel good. I'm getting used to that. It's a part of that comma is me knowing and believing that, Angie, this is not personal. I read the 4 agreements. This is not personal at all. I know it's not personal, but it doesn't feel good. And having to manage those emotions around that is exhausting sometimes.
Yeah. And I see you, I hear you, and I feel what you're sharing. And if I may, like something that came up, I don't remember if it was like some little assessment that I took or something like that. I think it was a couple of years ago, but the message, you enter some information and so forth, and then it kind of tells you about yourself. And as somebody who does the work that I do, I've used these instruments throughout my life and tried them all and that sort of thing, or constantly try lots of them and sometimes use them in the work. But it presented back this concept that perhaps the reason that people struggle to react to you, or choose not to react to you, or choose not to interact with you, is not because you're too much, but because you're a mirror and you show them how they're too much. Anyway, I don't know why I dropped that in, but it's just like, as you were saying, like, I don't understand, and maybe I do understand, but I still don't like it. It still feels a certain way. There's also this element too, that it never really had anything to do with you in the beginning, in the first place. That's very true.
Right. Yeah. People ask me all the time, Angie, how is it that you're still single? And I would say to people out loud, nobody wants to sleep with a mouth and a mirror. Like it'd be one thing if you were just reflective and you kept your mouth closed, that would be one thing. Or you were, just had your mouth open, but you weren't reflective. But a mouth and a mirror, that's just way too much for most people. And I thought it was just true in my intimate relationships, but it's also true in my friendships. This woman once said to me, who didn't even know me, she had just met me, she hired me to speak. And she said, Angie, I've only sat with you for 20 minutes, and I can imagine that your freedom is offensive to people's bondage. Mm. Mm. And I sat there with what is she talking about? Well, your transparency and your ability to shed shame. And people are looking at you going, what? Because people instantly compare. They go, okay, then, and think if I'm not on your level, I got to, one of my shirts says, grow on my level. It literally, without my permission, will judge me in a good way, but judge me and go, oh no, I can't do that. The other thing that comes to mind is this word light. And people say it all the time. They call me a light. They call me a light. They call me a light. And I forgot who I was talking to. They talked about a lamp, and a lamp stays stationary. But here you are, Angie, taking your lamp and shining on people's darkness. You shining on people's stuff. They're like, if you don't get your light out of here, I get it now. When I was going through it, I was like, what is going on? Like, why am I still the kid that can't get picked for the kickball team?
Yeah. Well, you and I were talking about this a little bit too, right? There's, if you're a light, how it can be overused, underused, or used in the right way, right? And it's like what you were just saying. It's like, many people want to seek the light so they can shine it on what they need to look at and then get on with their journey, right? So if you're a light pole and people come and stand under you and you offer what they need to be able to see, and then they continue on, the light pole can be kind of lonely, right?
Right.
But then I just heard you say that we didn't talk about, which is, and when the light pole gets lonely, it wants to go out and start shining light on people and trying to drum up business, right? And that's that's the overused part, right?
Yeah. They're like, if you don't get that light out of my eyes, I'm like, what? You didn't want to see this? You didn't want to see this? And I really and truly would think that's like if somebody had a sale and they were giving away whatever, I would go tell everybody about the sale. Well, the same thing happened with this girl. It's like, ooh, let me tell you where I grew today. And people looking at me like, what? I'm not. And I get it. I have an understanding why people are, who wants to unpack decades of trauma and drama and da ba da ba da ba da ba da. And I do also get that everybody doesn't have the time that I have to be able to do those things. And it takes time. You can't just pull something, unzip people and leave them just all.
Yeah. Well, just like ourselves, people have to come to this in their own way, at their own time, and in their own speed, right? Angela, you've already been telling us a little bit about what you've learned, but I want to ask the third question. What have you learned? What are you learning about yourself as a result of this comma?
Keep my light to let people ask you for the light. You cannot go around just giving it. You also can't go around reflecting everybody, and that people enjoy. I said I'm in the ocean. Well, people enjoy kicking it by the kiddie pool, and I'm having to learn. I know when I come off this comma, I have to learn how to have conversations about the weather. Like, oh, it's hot outside. I'm like, well, it's summer. Like, why are we having this conversation when we could be talking about, to learn how to say okay and let it just be, that I don't have to resolve everything that I encounter. Learning that I was never not enough. I was always too much, and not too much in an adverse way, but too much in that I've been given an assignment that required me to have this stockpile of whatever this is. But you don't have to give it to everybody. You don't have to give it all to one person and use it for your assignment, not for every personal relationship that you have. Those types of things. And probably one of the biggest lessons is that I'm clear that me loving me, or getting to a place of loving myself, took a lot. It took a lot, because love equaled what I did for other people. Love never equaled what I did for myself. And that's probably the biggest lesson, is that I'm capable of feeling a void that I have with myself. It's just that I just don't want me for that. Like I want some other people in this place, but I'm perfectly capable of doing it myself and be able to do it well myself. Yeah, that's and you can overcome anything. I think that, if you mentally want to do the work, those people that are capable of mentally going places and spaces, truth never killed anybody. And if you want to move, you can move. Yeah.
Yeah, I think back to, what you've shared with us from the beginning of the story up to this point. And yeah, I see that. Like you were kind of alluding to that when you were describing the 4 to 5 year period in the comma and kind of the transition from feeling like you were forced into that place to then kind of starting to resolve and accept what that place could do for you. And then here you are kind of really adding so much more color to that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I hear you saying, making peace with being able to do this on my own from here on out, and also being open to when and if the right fit or the right traveling partner comes along, being open to that as well.
Yeah. And also just being open to being able to be, the great thing about being here, that means you can manage everything from here to here. There's no reason in the world why I can't go kick it by the kiddie pool. There's no reason in the world why I can't just have everything doesn't have to be deep and profound and prolific. It doesn't have to be. And I have to learn it's not a waste of my time to be in that space, especially if that's where, this just came to me. If some of the people that I'm assigned to were by the kiddie pool, how else am I going to be there if I don't just go hang out by the pool? I don't sunbathe, but if that's what they're doing, then you got to go do that thing. And these are things that which is my intention. It was to really and truly be able to at least get the rope and then be able to do a little scaling while we're on the phone, because it's the first time I've said this out loud, not even to my therapist, about coming down off of this comma and what this might look like. And I think that it's just important. What you said is to recognize that, how capable I am of doing certain things. And I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to be afraid to not do something because I know what I can do. I know what I'm capable of doing.
I really appreciate you bringing in this concept of the assignment, right? Because, and that message right there, this connects for me to something that my coach trainer, Cammie, said. But first, what you said is like, my assignment doesn't just mean go and find what is fulfilling for me. Sometimes my assignment is going to where the people who need me will be, right? So kind of bring the light pole to them.
Right.
And I remember having a conversation years ago with Cammie about finding my purpose and stuff like that. I forget, and it doesn't matter. But it was the whole long, squishy conversation about my purpose and what I meant to do and everything. And the comment she made still sits with me to this day, which is, and your purpose may not be the thing that you enjoy the most. And I was like, fuck you.
Right. That part right there.
Damn it.
I tell people all the time, why? Because I feels like everything that's a part of my assignment is me having to do on the job training. Like, how come I can't read it in a book? How come I can't get it from a client? Why do I have to live it? Why do I have to experience it to be able to teach it? But almost all of the things that I dispense has come from on the job training. There's not too many things I talk about in my practice that I haven't lived through in some way. Street credit, you can call it, street credibility. But the other thing I want to go back to is the friends. Me making friends is going to have to equal me being okay with where people are and me not attempting to, I tried to even put a different name on it. I was like, well, I can just call them activity partners, people I do things with, because in my head, friends are intimate. It's what people get to know. But Angie, at 58 years old, if you're going to ever go to another concert with somebody else, you're going to have to look at things a little bit differently. And that's a lesson learned as well. And you don't have to be deep in that space and place. And people really and truly don't let them ask for the light. Let them ask for the light.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, kind of this revelation for you, or getting more familiar with and understanding the concept of people being in your life for a reason or a season or a life, and then being able to find more meaningful labels that work for you,
Right.
To attach to the people in those various stages.
Right.
The fourth question, Angela, is what has changed or what is changing for you as a result of sitting on this comma, laying on this comma?
Right. I feel like I'm just now sitting up. Change is just the way I see people. It absolutely has increased my ability to dispense grace and not be judgmental, not blame. I'm no longer pointing the finger at anybody else. I played a big part in most things that ever happened to me. I allowed to happen, and it was for the benefit of me. I stayed in places and spaces as a codependent. Rejection made me try harder with any particular person. Like, oh, put me in, coach. I can get it better. Not ever looking at what was going to be any give back, if it was going to be reciprocal. I'm learning that I have to be able to take care of me and take care of other people and be good at both of those things. Not just taking care of other people or not just taking care of me. Yeah, that part. And Adele, my little doggy.
Nice.
The little doggy. Did I answer the question?
I think you did. I was actually just pausing to kind of give it some time to set in. But, when you started describing the comma you were sitting on and kind of this like reaching out for all these people who were not giving you a yes, and then going into self-preservation mode and then learning to find what you were looking for within yourself, I think I just heard you say that. And you acknowledged earlier that's like it's not like it's all fixed and solved. Like you're always working on it. You're doing on the job training, right? But it does sound like you at minimum have now a different relationship with you, others, and what the varying levels of love of self and others means.
Absolutely, that's very true. I have a little sticky here that I keep hearing. It says, you are not being overlooked, abandoned, left, forgotten, rejected. You are being set apart, hidden, preserved, prepared, positioned, and protected. And to know those things equips me better to be able to get off the comma and to rejoin the world and to assume my identity back, and be clear about that with a different level, not a different level, a consciousness that you never ever had before. I don't know that I carried myself in such a place because it was all about, I looked up at everything that I'd ever done that was profound, including marriage, babies, careers, had something to do with somebody else, what somebody else wanted. I've been a follower all this time, thinking I was this badass woman that was leading her way. No, you was doing something that somebody else wanted you to do.
Wow. So, wow. Yeah. And your whole story that you shared with us illustrates how frightening it can be to challenge that, to go against that, to go do the thing that you want, because what they only show us in TV and movies is, the fun adventure kind of light version of that story. Right. What they don't realize is that people like yourself, I will include myself in that category. When you decide to go rogue or go against the norms, not to say that the norms are bad, like you can have your opinion about that. I can have my opinion about that, but I'm not going to make a blanket statement about that. But when we decide to go against the norms or the most common, right? That's not always just this pretty clean, sexy, fun little adventure, right? It comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility. It comes with a tremendous amount of self-governance. And I don't even like that word. I don't know why that word came. self-awareness and observation. But like what people don't really realize is that when you're in the mainstream and following the norm, there is a degree of safety there because you have a model to follow. But when you decide to strike out and find your own path, create your own path, there's no tour guide. You're making that shit up as you go. And you are dealing with the trips and the falls and the snake bites and the dirt and the dust. Like,
all of that, all of what you said. I wrote down something. It says it's like a romantic comedy that is also a horror and a thriller with drama. And you got the nerve to have some cameras following you trying to make a documentary. What? Are you kidding me right now?
Yes.
Are you kidding me right now?
Oh my gosh. Angela, I love that. I love every bit of that. And so last question, what does getting off the comma look like for you?
I'm going to say that it looks exciting. I'm allowing myself to be thrilled by the unknown, knowing that I can have some level of control. I don't have to be afraid to ease down off of this comma. It looks like enhanced peace, because the great thing about the peace and the joy that I've discovered, that I now know is an inside job. Nobody else can bring those things to me, but also nobody else should be able to take them from me. I am very, very, very excited to know that the happy I thought I was could be greater. If you thought you were happy just pleasing other people, wait till you please yourself. Like, wait till you those types of things. I'm excited about those things. And I'm no longer going to allow, as of this call, I'm no longer going to allow myself to think, but what happens if nobody's there? What happens if nobody's there? And God continues to say to me, what am I, chopped liver? Like, I gave you the assignment, I gave you life. And then you want to go, well, what about somebody else? And really and truly being weightless and just being pleasantly surprised if it comes, and being way okay if it doesn't. Then I'm enough. Yeah.
I just have to acknowledge you because, like, I think there's tremendous power in what I'm hearing you say. You didn't use these words, but it's like, I'm going to do the thing and I'm going to release the expectation of an outcome of the thing, right? Because this is what happens often is even when we say, okay, well, no, I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to go my own way. There's still this conversation has come up in like 3 or 4 episodes in a row so far. This thing of like, I go my own way, but I still kind of keep an eye over my shoulder to see who's paying attention. Right. And then, sorry, disappointed. But it's like when you truly put your eyes forward, you name that path for yourself, you start walking that path, and you just stop worrying about whether or not anybody's back there behind you, that's when they follow. But you can't get caught up in that, right? Like, yeah, I can't wait to see how this unfolds for you, because I myself experienced a little bit of something like that, where it's like, anytime I post something, I try not to post anything where I tell people anything, right? But anything that I feel like I'm trying to lead somebody in a direction, I get some reactions, right? It's when I just put stuff up there, hey, here's what I did, and I don't know, I don't care who sees it or whatever. That's when I get all the damn likes and comments, right?
Right.
So
absolutely.
Eyes forward on your path, my friend,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And let me tell you what's great about this happening now. 53 is when this journey began for me, age 53. And here we are on the 53rd episode of Off the Comma.
And that's like the 3rd or 4th shipper I've gotten in this conversation, by the way.
Yes.
That is
I was like,
amazing.
53, why does that? Oh, 53 is that year, 2019. Like, that's the year that this, began to unfold. But you said you can't wait to see what it looks like. I can tell you this, I have manifested greatness in my world. And whether you see me standing next to somebody or by myself, you'll see me on a red carpet. You'll see me accepting an award. You'll see me on, and not that those things matter, but you'll see me there in a way that I wouldn't have thought could be possible without an entourage or this or that, and know that I'm worthy. I am so worthy, and I'm so enough, and I'm so it's going to be amazing as it already is. And I won't settle for anything less than that, because I'm capable.
Yeah. I hear you. I see you. And I also hear you say that like, that's not the destination. That's the acknowledgement of the work.
That's right.
Angela, speaking of acknowledgments, we started with an intention. What would you, as you look back on this conversation now, it's been almost an hour. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
What would you acknowledge yourself for?
Good job, Angie. High five for you doing that and being open to the experience. Very proud that you continue to be a unapologetic truth teller, and bold in my story. And that I'm learning, that I'm still learning and growing, and know that I can always do and be more. Yeah, that's what you live for right there.
I love it. Angela, where can people find you? We're going to put all the links in the show notes, but if people want to learn more about you, they maybe want to reach out to you, connect with you, hear more about your story, or even some of the things that you're working on and putting out in the universe.
Well, here's the amazing thing is that I am Googleable. You can Google Angela Harvey, Angie Harvey Speaks, Black Rainbow Love, The Poetic Alchemy. All of those things will get you to me. And I tell people all the time, if you're looking to grow, I'm someone you should know, but just know that I'm growing myself. And so you might not get a return phone call that day. But when I reach you, it's going to be on.
I love that. If you're looking to grow, I'm someone you should know. That's is just right. Beautiful. There is just nothing but honey that comes out of your mouth. I love it. Okay.
Thank you.
Last piece, Angela. So this is something we do in every episode. And I feel like it's such an important part of your story. And it's also something that's important to me as part of just this overall podcast. And that's lifting other people up. So we call this section acknowledgments. And so the invitation to you is, if you think about your circles, you know, who would you like to boost, lift up, acknowledge, give a voice to? And that could be a cause or somebody who's important to you or an organization. Up to you. Who would you acknowledge?
I have to give a shout out to coda.org. When I discovered that I was a codependent and knew that there was help, I knew exactly where to go. And they absolutely were a catalyst. The people in those rooms were a catalyst to me being able to find out who I was and put an APB out on my ass. In this last season of my life, Dasana New has been, he's a poet here in North Carolina. He's been instrumental in helping me with my poetry self-help book and just been an example. Without his permission, I've used him as an example of how to ebb and flow. Definitely shout outs to God, my best friend, my ride or die, because really and truly, I had to learn what I know now from unhuman sources. And that's where it came from. I think you used the word the other day, drop-ins. And he has been faithful for dropping in some of the most profound things in my life. I always thought it was for other people, but many of those things were probably meant for me to keep for myself. And instead of me doing the right thing, I did the codependent thing and gave it away. And now I'm in a place where I'm able to receive it. And that's huge. And then I did to literally to every other person that's ever hurt or humbled or held space with me. Yeah, I'm here because of those people.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. And your fur baby.
And my fur baby. When I tell people she was a lifesaver, the saving of my life she did. It's my way of being able to get my codependency off without consequences. And yeah, in 2021, when I was ready to leave here, that was on the 1st of January, and I got her on the 18th, and she's definitely been a reason for sure. I'm glad she can't ask for my car keys, because she could have them at this point. I would give them to her knowing that she can't drive.
That sounds like echoes and shadows of the old Angela there.
Okay, she's still there. I just have to keep her contained.
Right.
But yeah, definitely Adele has been a lifesaver. Sure.
Wonderful. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. I'm so excited to have met you. You and I already talked about the whole, like, wow, that was a little bit of fate, wasn't it? How random it was that we were connected. And then we just kind of latched onto each other immediately. So there will be more for you and I off the microphone. Thank you for coming on and sharing this with us today. And I will look forward to talking to you more very, very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. It was definitely my pleasure. And I want you all to create an amazing life for yourself on purpose.
I love it. What an honor it is for me to witness these powerful stories. I hope you feel the same way too. Think about what you learned from this conversation. What stood out for you? What challenged you? What inspired you? And I encourage you to write it down in some form of journaling and reflection. Surprises can reveal themselves to you when you do this. And if you were moved by today's conversation, pass it along to someone you care about. Let's spread the word. Let's continue to build connection. And if you do discover something you'd like to unpack further, book a call with me and let's talk about it. My links are in the show notes. Be sure to like this episode, follow the podcast here on this platform and social media at Off the Comma, and feel free to comment and interact with these posts and episodes. Check out my website for workshops, events, and my sponsor community. I'm covering the costs of production by curating my own sponsors who align with our vision. Be sure to check them out. They're all powerful people and businesses. Thank you for listening to this episode of Off the Comma. As always, keep noticing and keep listening.